Speaking of times being better, it's not going to happen anytime soon with the importation of electric vehicles. They're getting cheaper and cheaper now. There are electric vehicles coming into the country in the range of about $40,000. So they're starting to become more affordable, and you would expect with that more people will buy them. But then you've got the small problem of having to charge the thing. Now, many people around the country live in terrace houses, single-fronted homes. They don't have a garage, so how do you charge your car? You've got to run a cable across the footpath. What do you do? And then you've got people who live in apartment buildings and townhouses where they have big communal car parks. Well, it turns out that all of these car parks around the country for apartment buildings that have been built, even in the last decade, but certainly well before that, are not equipped for the electrical equipment that needs to go into them in order to be able to charge an electric car. Quoted in the Daily Telegraph today is Ross Durango, who's the head of the Energy and Infrastructure at the Electric Vehicle Council. He says there are 1.3 million flats and apartments in Australia, and EV charging installations in those homes will often present more complex requirements than we see in freestanding homes and townhouses with driveways and garages. Who knew? But he continues, the scale of the challenge here is large. For example, if the average cost per dwelling in apartment complexes to do the electrical work to enable installation of EV charging is $1 to $2 grand, then the total spend needed is in the billions of dollars. Now, that's not $1 to $2 grand for the whole car park. That's $1 to $2 grand per parking space. So if you live in an apartment building that's got 400 apartments in it, that's $400,000 to $800,000 that you're going to have to stump up through your strata corp in order to be able to charge your electric vehicle. So this stuff falls over very, very quickly. I know someone who is upset by all of this, the great oracle of knowledge that is Kamala Harris.
Electric vehicles and reduced population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
I mean, she's not wrong. You will have to reduce the population to make this work because they can't live in the apartments where they currently live. So where the hell else are they going to go? I mean, this is the great green dream. We know that if you plug in your electric car at the moment, it's most probably being powered by coal and gas-fired power anyway. So you are driving around on fossil fuels. But the amount of work, just like reforming the energy grid to deal with renewables, the tens of thousands of new lines of electricity lines we need across this country to make the system work, it's just totally unworkable. But who's going to have to pay for it to make it work? You. I mean, if you've got lots of money, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever the hell you want. But we are going to expect that people who earn $40,000, $50,000 a year are going to be stumping up $2,000 to retrofit the car park in their apartment building that they can barely afford the rent on so they can plug in their electric car, because by 2034, we will have banned combustible cars.
And this is to say nothing for renters. So if you're a renter, you don't even have that kind of sway with whatever strata, etc. and so on. You don't own anything, but you're in this apartment block. If you've got an EV, you need the owner's corporation to sign on to this. It's just a hopeless case. And we know that most people, especially in places like Sydney, are renters because they don't have the money to buy. Who does here? But it also counts it out for all those hundreds of thousands, millions of renters in a city like this one. They've got absolutely no option. You can't get an EV unless your owner's corporation, like you say, decides to generously stump up that much money, which is highly unlikely, especially with the older buildings. That's also extremely problematic. They're not the ones with the big underground car parks anyway. So, it's just an ongoing nightmare.
So much of this renewable energy stuff does not make sense. And as stupid as that is, let me give you some other illustrations from around the world right now that just don't make sense at all. The Scottish Government is always trumpeting their green credentials. In fact, they're in coalition with the Greens, and they have announced that they intend to add 20,000 wind turbines to the 19,000 they already have. This is going to be great for the environment. they say, well, it's just been revealed in the Scottish Parliament that to make room for all these wind farms they require, they've cut down 15.7 million trees. That equates to cutting down 1,700 trees every day for the last 23 years. But this, of course, is going to help them achieve net zero. If you think that's crazy, listen to opposition MP Liam Kerr. He told the Parliament, most people will be astonished to see the number of trees cut down to make way for wind farms. I've been contacted many times by rural communities all over the country, questioning the location of these developments, sharing concerns not just about the visual impact, but also the damage to wildlife and to business. Now we learn there's significant damage when it comes to trees. He said ministers must be alive to the significant costs that could be incurred with the sitting of wind farms. Well, if that's not bad enough in Scotland, in Ireland they've announced they intend to kill 200,000 cows in order to reduce methane emissions so they can meet EU climate change requirements. This amounts to culling the beef herd in Ireland by 10%. Now, the amazing thing about this, Liz, is that the European Union import 25% of their beef. Where do you reckon they import it from? Brazil. So to make room for cows in Brazil, what are they cutting down? Oh, the Amazon forest. See, all of this makes so much sense. It makes about as much sense as Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's always travelling the world, warning about the perils of climate change and insisting Canada will lead the way. Well, footage has emerged this week from Justin Trudeau in Toronto, travelling through the city. How many cars do you reckon it takes a Canadian climate change catastrophist to travel through the city? 27 vehicles in his motorcade, Liz.
He didn't even have... What really gets me about this is he didn't even have the decency to put a bike in his boot and ride it for the last 100 metres. I mean, please, if you're going to pretend to care, at least pretend to care.
Well, you remember the Joni Mitchell song Big Yellow Taxi, right? Pave paradise and put up a parking lot. These days it seems to be pave paradise and put up a wind farm. I mean, seriously, imagine thinking that it was environmentally friendly to not only knock over 16 million trees, then you've got to go and mine all of this stuff out of the ground to build these wind turbines out of. Then you've got to put them on the back of trucks that are powered by diesel, pulling heavy loads. So they're burning shed loads of diesel to get these wind turbines to the places where they're going to put them in the ground. Then they've got a life of about 20 years. So what do you do with them after 20 years? You put a stick of dynamite in the ground, you blow them out of the ground, and then you bury them under the ground where they do absolutely nothing. And then that land may as well be dead. So yes, it is great for the environment. Well, I love these stories so much because it just demonstrates how utterly stupid this stuff is. I mean, it's like here, we can't even cut down trees to do something useful with them because that's supposedly bad for the environment, but we can knock over 16 million trees to put up wind turbines.